Matchmaker.fm connects podcasters and guests. Welcome to Matched, the show where we talk to some of the most incredible guests available for an interview right now. I'm your host, James Mulvany, founder of Matchmaker.fm, and this is Matched. So, Brenden, welcome to Matched. Firstly, please just start by introducing yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Brenden Kumarasamy. I'm the founder of MasterTalk, which is a YouTube channel I started to help the world master the art of communication and public speaking. Long story short, I realized a lot of the public speaking information on YouTube was horrendous. So I started making videos in my mother's basement. One thing led to another, and here we are today.
Let's start off. I'm going to ask you about that in a second, but that's quite an interesting story. But let's just start off with a couple of icebreakers. So to begin with, you've got a smartphone, I imagine. If you had to delete all but 3 of the apps on your phones, which one would you keep?
Google Keep, for sure, because I'm always note-taking. That helps you, by the way, for podcasts, it helps you generate new ideas for videos and content. So I wouldn't give that up. The second one is probably Gmail, since I need to check my emails every 10, 15 seconds just to make sure I got every single one. And the third one is probably Clock, because I'm always setting alarms all the time for meetings like this to make sure I don't miss them. So there's like a beeper that goes off like 10 times a day at my house.
So you're very business focused then. So all of these apps are productivity, making sure you're keeping efficient and, making sure things keep moving forward.
You got it.
Awesome. Next icebreaker. So if you had to be on any reality TV show, which one would you choose and why?
Oh, that's a cool one. Which one would I choose? Probably, though I'd probably change my answer at some point in the future, but Conan would be sick.
Yeah.
Like if you just got on the Conan O'Brien show, we just laugh at each other's, and then that would be the skit and nothing else would happen. So that's probably what I would go out of my gut right now.
Awesome.
From the gut.
Awesome. Okay, let's get down to it. So obviously public speaking is your thing. I'm kind of curious to know, what is it that you like about public speaking? How did you first get involved in it? It's something that so many people are scared of, but I think it's just a skill that's kind of massively useful, not just if you're in business, but even if you're just in work, but a lot of people still shy away from it, I think.
When I was in university, James, I did these things called case competitions. So think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So other guys my age were playing rugby or footy or cricket, since you're based in Europe. I was never into sports. You probably tell from looking at me. So what I did instead is I applied the same competitive spirit to presentations. So I presented hundreds of times in university, coached dozens of people on communication. But to be honest, being a YouTuber or a business, whatever, wasn't really my thing. I just wanted to get a job in the corporate world. But then when I started working in the corporate world, I just asked myself this question, which is like, is this all I'm going to do with my life? I'm just going to make some money and then die. And that's when, MasterTalk happened. But I think the idea for me is public speaking is something I've always struggled with my whole life. Like when I was 5, I grew up in a city called Montreal. And in Montreal, you need to know how to speak French. And I didn't know how to speak French. So I had to go to a French school to learn it. So imagine giving presentations in a language you don't even know. So that's why I'm pretty passionate about sharing this idea with some people out there.
Yeah, and I think, obviously your YouTube channel's gone from strength to strength. So talk about the kind of, how did you get into that? How did you go from something like, oh, this is great fun at university, I'm kind of speaking in front of lots of people. What sort of subjects were you talking on? Just anything? Is it like a debating society? Is that kind of it?
Yeah, think of it like this. So a business gives you a problem, and then from that problem, you have to solve it and then present it back to who are generally the executives of that company. So I know this sounds bizarre, but there is this secret society of presenters in different business schools across the world, including Europe. There's a lot in Germany and the UK, and they travel around the world, like the best presenters in their schools. The school would pay like thousands of dollars to sponsor it all, just for them to give PowerPoint presentations. So to tell you like a quick thing just to explain this, when I was 21 or 22, one of the case sponsors for one of these competitions was Walmart. So they paid like 30 grand like to be there. But the person who's presenting the case is not some guy who runs one of the stores. It's the senior vice president of Walmart Canada. And you're just there like, I have to present in front of this guy. So yeah, it was like presentations on steroids.
Yeah. And yeah, that's great experience. And then, so how did the YouTube thing come about? How did you go from that to thinking, okay, I'm going to try and teach this to other people?
Yeah, for sure. It really came from all the people I was coaching in that little weird secret society of people. They just looked at me and they said, "How did you learn how to speak?" And I never had a good answer because I was a broke student like anyone else. I didn't have resources. So I was just practicing with other people and I kind of figured it out along the way. But after the 11th person asked me the same question, kind of just wondered like what was out there? Like what kind of stuff existed? And I was just horrified by the content that was out there. So I just said, okay, like I got so frustrated that I should make better stuff for those students, for those 10, those 5, those 1, those people. So I just started making videos in my basement. Honestly, for the first 6 months, I thought MasterTalk was a stupid idea. Like I was just making videos with my phone with no lighting. And if you don't believe me, go watch the first video and you'll see it's just horrendous. But then over time, it grew to 65 subscribers and 100 and then, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, oh, like a lot more people need this public speaking thing. So I dove in and put a lot more money into the project.
Yeah, I think one of these things with YouTube as well, like it's satisfying, isn't it? Like I've started kind of rebooted my YouTube channel at the start of this year, and like we've gone from like it had about 2,500 subscribers and got up to about 5,000, just about to hit 5,000 at the moment. And it's just like, every day practically I'm checking the stats. I'm like, oh, have I got more subscribers? And how did that last video we do? And it's just like when you get into the momentum of doing one video a week, it's quite exciting actually.
I completely agree, man. Like that's what happened with me. I started, I had 7 subscribers, but I was still pushing them out once a week. And now I've got an insane workflow. Like I've probably written my content 3 years in advance. Wow. I look at my stats like every single day. Yeah. I'm guesting left and right thanks to this amazing platform that you have for people. And it's been a wild ride ever since. For sure.
Have you found that it's opened up lots of business opportunities as well?
Yeah, definitely. And just to be transparent with people, like, I started MasterTalk not even for it to be a business. Right? It was just, my goal is to be a senior executive at a company before I was 30. Right? It wasn't like, oh, I need it. Because a lot of my friends, that's what they do because we did all these competitions together. So that senior executive at Walmart, well, they're there for a reason. They're there to pick and choose the top people and give them offers. So I, once again, never had that to happen. But as the channel progressed, a lot of executives started reaching out to me. They're like, hey kid, do you do coaching? And I was like, for money? And they just said, yeah. And I was like, oh, and then now I have a practice out of it. But yeah, it was a funny start. Kind of worked in reverse.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way of starting a business, isn't it? Like, I think, if you're doing something that you're passionate about and you want to, if you're prepared to do it for free to begin with, and then, you start making money from it, you love it even more then. It's just like, that's like the ideal sort of progression, I think, of sort of having a good idea and thinking, oh, this is fun, and then actually end up getting paid to do it, which is, what everyone wants to do ultimately, I think.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's just talk a bit about sort of being a guest on podcasts, how you've used Matchmaker and kind of like, have you used it to kind of find people to appear on your channel as well? I'm curious to hear about your experiences with the platform.
Yeah, so I wouldn't recommend it highly enough. It's just so great, but I think the benefit for me was very unique and different for others. I'm happy to comment on that. I've always been thinking about who are the people who need MasterTalk the most, like as a platform, just the free stuff, not like services or anything. And similar to you, when you saw the gap in the market and you realized there's a lot of people who wanted to guest and a lot of people who needed shows who were just guests on their shows who were getting started, I realized that podcast hosts in general, if they want to do bigger and better things with their show, need to be great communicators. So I saw this amazing in between. But I think the issue I had with all the other platforms, it was much harder for me to engage with the hosts. Whereas with how Matchmaker works, you can engage with someone, they can say, oh, wow, look at this YouTube video. Whether it's a fit or not doesn't really matter because they can still watch the videos and get better. Makes everybody better, kind of the all ships rise mentality. Since a lot of my speaking engagements got canceled, because before COVID, I never really thought to guest on shows. I thought Matchmaker was great and I've been very successful on the platform. I've probably done at least 50 interviews on the service. At least. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Really good. And what are some of your highlights of that?
Oh, so many. I've met so many amazing. It's not even about the shows, to be honest. It's I found that podcast hosts, especially when there's a really good fit, it's not just about the show, but rather just the friendship after. Like I just talk with a lot of the people I've been on shows and I always send them resources from other places that, oh, from this show I learned this. Here, you should use this for what you're doing. So I think it's just great, like not just as a platform, but as a way to just build meaningful connections and friendships.
Yeah.
So I've been super grateful for that.
Awesome. Well. And what is it about podcasting you think allows this kind of human connection that perhaps other mediums don't give you?
You probably know this answer a lot better than I do, but I'll try and summarize it.
Yeah, I just like to get different people's perspectives on it. I think it's always interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way that I see it, similar to what you say in your videos, which I agree with, is podcasting is one of the few mediums in the world where you have people's attention for that long. Yeah, I've always said that there's only 3 mediums, in my opinion, where you could really be a thought leader. And those 3 mediums are blogs, podcasts, and YouTube channels. But what I would argue with podcast is it's an informal way of explaining your full thought process to curate the 1,000 true fans that you're looking for in the shortest period of time. So for those who don't know and haven't read Kevin Kelly's blog on building those 1,000 people who absolutely love what you do, basically what he argues in the article is that you don't need 1 million people who love you. You need those 1,000 people who go, I'm willing to pay James $50, $100 a year, whatever, or Brendan's thing, $50, $100 a year, and you can make a living off of that. And what podcasting does, even if there's 7 people watching or 70 people watching, the people who are watching are raving fans rather than the people on Instagram, even if you have thousands of followers that are just liking a picture and don't really get the full sense of who you are.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And I think, again, there's a clear difference, isn't there, between the sort of the wants and needs of people who are listening to podcasts versus just someone who's on like a Instagram or Facebook. I think there's like this genuine sort of thirst for really good quality information versus like people who are just going on for like a quick fix, so to speak. I think that's kind of the clear separation between social media and podcasting.
Completely agreed.
Cool. Who would be like your ideal podcast guest if you could choose anyone in the world?
Oh, guest? Definitely Lewis Howes. One of the reasons I credit a lot of my success in life, or I guess relative success, if you think about it that way, is Lewis's show. So when I was 17 or 18, I started listening to the School of Greatness back when podcasting wasn't really a thing. And there was like Joe Rogan and like 3 other shows or something. And, I just loved it. He taught me about relationships, about influencer marketing, about everything, because the show's about everything and everyone. And I went through most of the episodes, so I would love to interview him someday and just talk about his life.
And likewise, if you could be on any podcast in the world, which one would it be?
That would be Lewis's, and I'm definitely keen on trying to do that within the next 5 years. Let's see what happens.
Fingers crossed, yeah. Okay, cool. And if finally, just to wrap things up, if you could give one piece of advice for someone who's kind of thinking about getting into podcast or getting into guesting on podcasts, what would that piece of advice be?
Absolutely. So I always like to say things that most people don't, right? And the advice I have is be a slave to your audience. My friend told me this once before I got started. He said, it doesn't matter how successful you become. It doesn't matter how popular your podcast or your YouTube channel is. You'll always be a slave to your audience. For without your audience, you are nothing. And that's why people at the top of this game, whether it's Seth Godin, Gary Vaynerchuk, or in the podcasting space, Lewis, Jordan Harbinger, and the like, what they still do that most people don't pay attention to. That's why I always say, never say wow, always ask how. Is when you look at the back end of what every one of these people doing, is they're still talking to the general public one-on-one. Lewis still has one-on-one conversations with people. Gary still does. They don't have to. So why do they? So that they can stay sharp on the needs and wants of their audience and reverse engineer how to make their experience better for them at all times.
Brenden, if people want to get in touch or find out more about you, how can they do that?
Absolutely. So the YouTube channel is MasterTalk in one word. So you can check out all the YouTube videos that I have there on public speaking. And if you want to send me a message, I answer all my DMs. Instagram's the best way to do that. And my handle is Master Your Talk.
There is an easier way to get booked onto more podcasts as a guest. Join matchmaker.fm for free today and start making connections with podcasters who are looking for guests just like you.